Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Monday, May 20th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card, we are starting our day off with today. We love to see this. We've got here our King of Wands in its upright. Beautiful energy right now, a lot of creativity. This is one of the things I want to stress that we've been seeing as it relates to some of this work right now is I know it has felt slow, but this is that feeling of momentum that is building, that beautiful energy that we're exiting the Taurus season with, that sense of commitment, that sense of determination. We're now starting to see that that's feeling a little bit eased up. It's starting to move into that space of communication, of planning, of creativity, of passion. Remember how I said that some of that energy right now in separation has been pulling back a little from the passion center? Well, things are about to start changing there, we see. And it is going to have a bit of a different impact depending on where you are on the frequencies. Masculine and feminine energy right now that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. A lot of this work that we have been seeing that the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency has been doing is very under the surface. It's been a lot of that internalization. This is like still waters running deep kind of work, especially because we identified that for a lot of the energy in this capacity, you're not necessarily doing this in a way that feels like it's to generate a certain difference in activation. If anything, we see that for a lot of the energy right now moving forward in this way, that ability to perceive something from the past in a different way is reaffirming your own energetic commitment in relationality to the way that you're moving at this time. For masculine energy, that ability of repositioning a trauma, and we did see that for a lot of the masculine energy, this could be feeling like a lightning in the burden in relationality to looking back on something that you used to hold yourself much more deeply or energetically accountable for. If these are old wounds that you're now releasing that feeling of blame or shame on yourself for something that you're realizing that externally happened around you, almost just allowing yourself to feel the vulnerability that helps you heal it, that is the energy of the masculine being able to come through and the ability of being able to talk about something in a way that you might not necessarily have been able to talk about it before, right? Because it's that moment of being able to express something and feeling the same easement as in relation to something that you've been doing internally. That's almost showing to a certain extent. That is the validation point for a lot of the masculine energy right now, and feeling like that pathwork is having a tangible result in your present context. While for feminine energy right now, this is potentially that reaffirmation of commitment in relationality to the energy around you that's helping you forward in your own understanding and the way you are holding experiences and circumstances from the past. Because if this is feminine energy that's doing that work, not necessarily releasing doubt or blame, but coming into that point of the feminine, being able to release that sense of self-doubt, releasing those places or spaces of overly working towards perfection. Potentially a lot of the feminine energy recognizing the difference between them moving towards their highest version of self versus what may have felt like them trying to meet someone else's energetic expectations of them. We see even now like that's that moment that these energies deep in the heart of the divine union frequency feel like they are energetically healing something in the present. And it has to do with embodying those lessons. It doesn't necessarily result in them changing, because if these are energies that are on the healing journey, you may have already implemented a lot of the changes that are allowing you to have these breakthroughs. But that commitment in wanting to effectively be the source of the healing going forward, that is that moment that we see that a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, they feel like they're laying that template down. They feel like they are breaking some of those like long-held energetic cycles that may have created those wounds in the past. The only difficulty or hurdle is it does feel to a certain extent like what happens when you break out of an energetic template. It's like you're not necessarily sure what that looks like, right? And so we see that those energies, even in the heart of the divine union frequency, they're building that template together. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is a little bit, I told you, this is a little bit more energetically challenging, because this isn't a moment wherein you're looking back at something from the deep, deep past and suddenly feeling that perceptual shift that reaffirms your own commitment in the path work. A lot of this energy is feeling this specifically as a result of integrating the lessons of the counterpart into your own energetic experience. And that's one of those moments that, so long as you don't allow yourself to get triggered, as long as you don't allow yourself to subject the other to the emotions that you may be experiencing in navigating those wounds, that moment of almost allowing for that sense of healing to come in with the reaffirmation and commitment to how you will be treating one another going forward, that is almost the healing of the path work, because it's almost that moment in identifying and seeing someone that's moving forward in that way, that notice, that consideration, that care, almost someone who almost immediately integrates something that you told them, and they bear that mindfulness in present context. That moment of seeing that almost immediately allows for healing to activate, even around spaces or places where someone is being very careful not to energetically overstep an insecurity or a wound, because that mindfulness is the expression of being in an environment wherein the wound would not occur in the first place. Whereas for masculine and feminine energy right now, in separation, we see here a lot of productive conversation that is occurring in the separation space. And what is happening right now, if we've got masculine and feminine energy in separation that are pushing their own envelope, feminine doing a lot of work and being their most authentic version of self, not wanting to be too malleable for the masculine energy that they're potentially trying to encounter in separation for the sake of kind of staying in alignment with their own path and their own highest sense of self as they do so. And for masculine, going through their own work, trying to be vulnerable, challenging themselves into those levels of vulnerability, even at the point of making new energetic connections. These are energies that are seeing the result on that in open, positive, productive, passionate conversations, because these are that moment that you may feel like the expression or expansion of having like what may feel akin to like a true heart-to-heart with someone. And that ability to have a heart-to-heart with someone is not something that you can do unless you're in a space or place that you've done enough healing that you can be honest with yourself. Because only via the honesty of ourselves, the level of honesty we reach within ourselves, can we bring forth in our communication with others. So what do we see is happening right now for a lot of this energy and separation that's on this healing journey, navigating and utilizing in those practices into action? We see that there's already a lot of that productive conversation that is coming from those spaces and places. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our death card in its reversal. Now, why are we seeing this death card that's been coming up? This is not the first time we've seen this death card right now in its reversal. Not surprised to see it coming out of Taurus season right now. We've got that slowness, right? This is not the type of energy that feels like it's looking for a fast change. In fact, we see that a lot of this energy is feeling like reactivity right now is what they're trying to move away from, right? So it's not surprising that we're seeing that for a lot of this slowness, this steadiness, this need or this feeling of not needing to rush something. For the energy right now in separation, that is validating a lot of the security that is being built in new energetic connections. We see this even more so because one of the things that we identified that's happening for a lot of the feminine in separation right now is feminine almost articulating how they may felt like they moved too quickly in spaces or places. They were too adaptable. They were too changeable. And we see even now that feminine energy is continuing, even if in separation, working through that modality of taking a boundary and turning it into an energetic standard. That requires a lot of introspection. For the masculine energy that's coming towards feminine during this time, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, you have been doing that same work. You are being very energetically mindful of being open and honest to the feminine, but also in a way of amplifying that sense of not wanting to change the feminine energy so much as being open to see if the feminine energy is in alignment with you. So what are both of these energies doing right now as it relates to facilitating and fostering new energetic connections? Slowness is the key. Like masculine almost articulating and saying that this is the masculine that's almost saying to feminine in separation, this is what I aspire and desire to do on your timeline. like as you might desire that to come forth, right? This isn't the masculine that's saying like, these are the things I desire and I desire them now. This is almost the masculine bringing them forward in such a way to basically amplify and have that bit of more of a wait and see approach as it relates to the feminine. While for feminine right now in separation, seeing that quality in masculine, a masculine energy that is both able to articulate upon what their desires are without feeling that sense of the masculine trying to see the feminine as a means to an end in achieving or attaining those manifestation goals or those desires. These are energies that are putting a lot of thought and consideration in what the shape of that manifestation or future outcome looks like. So we see even now there's a little bit of that slowness here, but that energetic slowness is because these are both energies that are working in that space of healing, and that healing takes time. And there's a recognition point that is coming through right now for both of these energies, that even in a place or space of being authentic, there's one thing that you can't rush. You can't rush consistency. For a lot of the feminine energy, they are recognizing that the only way that they can be for sure in relationality to whether the masculine is truly coming towards them from a healed modality, or if this feels like a sudden change, is the consistency coming into play. And consistency can only be rendered and understood via time. So we see even now that these energies are not moving away from time, but they're almost amplifying that time is a part of that energetic journey. Masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, this does not feel so much like an easement point in relationality to time, so much as it may be feeling more like the energetic hurdles that are potentially standing in the way of you moving forward deeper into your manifestation goals. If these are energies right now that have come into divine union, there may be a lot of consideration and planning that is being made right now in relationality to what you aspire and desire to do versus what your counterpart does. And what do we see that these energies are doing right now? They are talking about time, right? Even here, because we see that what happens when masculine and feminine both start to feel that energetic confidence towards something, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. That almost creates that sense sometimes with masculine wanting to rush things forward, wanting to move faster. Feminine, it sometimes creates that space of the feminine wanting to move slower, right? Both of these energies regulating and recognizing the desire and shape of what they want to achieve going forward, having those particularities in how that is done, when that is done, the shape of that. So a lot of energy around the planning space right now for all of the energies we've seen so far. While for masculine and feminine deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is the moment of overcoming a blockage. If these were spaces or places wherein you've been holding something for a great deal of time, your own ability, and we even saw here, these aren't energies that are realizing or recognizing something from their deep past and suddenly saying, oh, I don't feel it anymore, it's great. But the ability to look at something in a different way, that is what is facilitating now new opportunities, new experiences, because we see even now that the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency is looking at things from a different perspective. And the ability to see one's own blockages, one's own insecurities in a way that you couldn't before. It is allowing for new communication. It is allowing for new perception. And now we see that could be the activation point on some of that planning with the perceptual understanding of seeing something in a way and now being able to put voice to it. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here Queen of Swords in its reversal. This type of work is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. If these are energies that are perceiving things from the past in a different way, it is taking different energetic lessons from those experiences. And the reason we see a little bit of that stillness here is what happens when you are potentially carrying a wound from the past that you feel like you are misperceiving. There's that moment of consideration that you almost have to put in every other place or space, or how your own inability to see something may have impacted the things around you. So this is some of that energy that we see in terms of like reshuffling or looking at things with a different eye, from your own experience, from your own past. Why are the energies going back towards these things in such a way? Because there's that moment that the minute that you heal something, you can look back on every experience and take different lessons from it. That is creating a space or place that is having a bit of a different energetic signature. For masculine, if these are places or spaces wherein you took a wound from the past that you were, overly blaming yourself for something occurring that you're now giving yourself the vulnerability to recognize experience to you and was not necessarily a direct reaction of something that you did. That's the masculine that's able to feel something to such an extent that they're able to articulate on something in a way that they haven't articulated on before. Because the masculine is almost being able to perceive something in such a way that it makes it energetically easier to talk about. While for feminine, if these are spaces or places wherein you feel like you experienced some kind of wound from experience in the past, wherein you are too malleable, too adaptable, then that's a lot of the feminine energy going back and looking for those same experiences from the past, because these energies are now seeing and recognizing how the way that they were carrying a wound in the wrong place may have impacted their understanding on their own energetic experiences. So that's why we see so much of that slowness coming into play right now, because that's that wait a minute that is almost required as one takes their glasses and looks at something a little bit more closely. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is a lot of that energetic overprotectiveness that sometimes occurs in relationality to coming into the divine union frequency. Remember how I said last week it was really important with a lot of the energetic signature we were seeing not to allow yourself to be triggered, especially from anything outside of the divine union frequency? One of the things that we see that is the lesson that these energies are integrating right now is that sense of accountability. Not necessarily feeling like anything that happened outside the divine union frequency happened to you, but almost coming into that modality of energetic acceptance. Almost like I told you, some of this energy was dealing with that feeling. Like what happens when you feel like you couldn't see something and you energetically shift something. Sometimes that brings up that feeling of bitterness, right? For the feminine. Sometimes it brings up that space of regret for the masculine. Both of these energies almost saying and reaffirming that you cannot blame oneself for something that you could not feel or experience or see prior to having felt or seen and experienced it. And that is immediately allowing that energy to almost come into a point of recovery and almost a point of energetic forgiveness for themselves. But it's almost coming also from that state of compassion, because why are they doing that? They're not even giving each other that lesson to the self. They're building it as a perfect mirror to the other. If these are energies that are articulating how they're feeling to each other and the other one's saying you can't blame yourself for that, that's a lesson that we speak that immediately comes back to us at the moment that we may be experiencing the same node. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in separation, this is the amplification of the energy of recognizing and seeing one another in such a way that there may be a lot of energy right now in separation that feels like, again, slow conversations that are being formed. There's no rushing here. But the ability to have the clarity in terms of where you see someone is what is facilitating the possibility of having an energetic breakthrough. Masculine, if this is masculine that is observing feminine, that is again trying to articulate and amplify to the masculine why they may feel hesitancy or why they're trying to move more slowly. This is the masculine that may be returning back to the feminine saying, no, I understand completely why. Because I am also on an energetic journey of healing. And I also understand that there's a certain vector of what I'm trying to tell you about my own healing journey that can only be articulated and amplified with consistency via V over time. So for a feminine energy to see that and to recognize that on the part of a masculine, that again immediately is a feminine energy feeling the sense or the security of a masculine that does not feel like they're trying to utilize the feminine as a means to the end, but rather that is truly manifesting forward and wants to build forth with feminine and is putting in the sense of patience and clarity and understanding to work through any of the energetic hurdles that may be creating that sense of insecurity in the feminine that may not necessarily exist within the masculine itself, because this is healed masculine energy that if the feminine expresses an insecurity, does not take it personally, but is almost moving towards the feminine with a sense of curiosity to understand the cause or the reason in order to better learn and build forth towards the feminine and building a deeper energetic connection. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is 2 cards coming out. One of them is transverse. We've got here our Knight of Wands and our 2 of Wands, and it's transverse. So I got to say, a lot of the masculine energy right now, really, really, really feeling that sense of energetic purpose. And we really see right now, if these are spaces and places where masculine is feeling like there are these challenges, this is what's beautiful about this. This is not masculine energy that is taking any of these blockages as like a personal situation. They're navigating them with a sense of curiosity. They're navigating them with a sense of understanding to be able to facilitate a positive, productive solution. So even now, if these are new energetic connections that are being made in separation, we see that this is masculine that is trying to understand better those doubts, those fears, those insecurities of the feminine, not embodying them, not being reactive, not assuming that they are again, these are not like the energies that are like assuming that is something to be taken personal. But this is that moment where masculine is almost, the healed masculine energy is trying to better understand the feminine in order to build that sense of energetic reassurance. And what we appreciate about this, for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality, you recognize and understand that there's a facet or part of this that is energetically out of one's own control. And that has to do with, again, the vector of time. We even saw that some of the masculine energy was going through that difficult, challenging conversation, either again, metaphysically or tangibly, with some feminine saying like, I understand your caution, I understand your trepidatiousness, but I'm eagerly looking forward to an opportunity to be able to show you otherwise, right? And what's beautiful about that is not a masculine energy that's trying to like work around a feminine, but that's almost the masculine energy almost acting as a clear mirror to the feminine energy that is experiencing any of that hesitancy, to almost articulate to the feminine and say, I recognize and see that what you're carrying forward, those wounds are valid. I cannot carry those wounds for you, and I don't know you enough to build the responsibility of doing so, but I want you to understand that I understand. And in a way, that in itself, for a lot of the feminine energy, is building forth in creating a space or place of the feminine, being able, I want to say to a certain extent, of feeling like allowing that sense of, I don't want to say it's taking an energetic risk, but allowing oneself to be vulnerable just enough, not in the sense of changing oneself, not in the sense of moving out of one's own highest version of self, but almost like letting one's own energetic guard down a little to be able to slowly build a new positive energetic connection. And we see even now that for the energy doing so, there is a little bit of that wait and see approach, but navigating that in such a way, it feels like something that is being very mindful every step of the way. Because these energies have been spending a lot of time talking and speaking about what hasn't been working, all to facilitate a pathwork forward that will. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, this is going to feel more energetically frustrating right now, because this is a situation or circumstance wherein, again, if you are in alignment in relationality to your goals, your plans, your manifestation goals, a lot of these energies coming into divine union right now, it's the question about how you move forward. The fact that you're moving forward together is the energetic commitment. You're already building very close towards one another in this way. This is that moment where anything external that feels like it's standing in the way of you coming closer into that energetic union, this is that sense of wanting to tackle it, because this is a lot of that externalization point. Because we almost see here that for the energy coming into divine union, masculine and feminine are feeling very confident towards one another, right? We see here the feminine energy that feels like they can put their guard down. We've got here the masculine energy that's excited about the plans going forward. So what is that? What is occurring that is being navigated right now on the way? It's everything. It's everything else. It's everything outside of the divine union. And so we see even now the ability not to feel triggered by that, but almost doing everything one can to try to facilitate an easier pathwork forward. That's a lot of the concentration of this energy right now. And if masculine, what I really like about this is if this is masculine feeling any frustration about something that is a hurdle right now, this isn't a masculine that is letting themselves get low on it. This is a masculine that's turning their attention, almost like distracting themselves by clearing other pathways. So this is a lot of the masculine energy right now coming into divine union that is really like focusing. A lot of the masculine energy, period, is just saying very much today, like, if there's a will, there's a way. And as long as I keep the will, I will find a way. And for the feminine energy to see that on the part of the feminine, masculine, that further inspires the confidence of the feminine in the masculine, because this is not a masculine energy that allows themselves to feel an overwhelm. It's almost like the masculine energy that just like always finds that directionality and relationality to what they're trying to manifest. And that's the feminine building forth in that as well, and feeling that same sense of excitement and vigor, almost potentially by seeing it being activated within the masculine. Masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency right now. This is the further commitment and the affirmation that the feminine and masculine are having as it relates to the reperception on something that you may have been holding with a sense of over accountability that was a wound from a long-term past experience that you're now finally able to release. It's like, what happens when you like let go of that? It feels a lot like unclenching a fist. It feels a lot like unclenching a fist. It feels a lot like that moment of energetic release, almost like it's like that collective sigh that you can have like in the etheric space, because simply the way that you're perceiving something changes everything. If this is masculine energy that is no longer holding the weight of blame on something that they may have experienced from early on, that they're recognizing was not so much something that was caused as a reactivity point from themselves, something that they could change, but rather maybe even a wound that was created by a feminine energy that was unhealed, that was potentially unhealed because of their connection with a masculine that was unhealed. This is the masculine immediately sensing a point of energetic courage and excitement, because that's the masculine feeling the confidence, like what happens in that moment, and saying, I know how I can fix something. I know how I can fix something going forward. I know how I can prevent something from happening going forward. I can make sure that I'm healed to such an extent that that will never occur again. So we see even now that that's a lot of the masculine energy getting that like wave of energetic excitement in relationality to things like that, because it reaffirms the masculine's own commitment to their pathwork. While for feminine energy, if these were spaces or places wherein the feminine energy had been looking and overly being critical on themselves, always overly looking at themselves, always feeling like they were missing the mark, always feeling like they were failing themselves, and they realized, the feminine realizes that that's because they've been holding a standard that was created, an energetic wound that was created by holding a standard that wasn't actually the standard of the feminine's own highest version of self, but more someone else trying to give feminine their standard of what they aspire and desire them to be. This is also feminine that feels that easement, because that's the feminine that almost is like allowing that template to fall so that they can discover who they are that they truly desire and aspire to be going forward. Fifth card in our five, and it's a little bit harder for the feminine in this modality, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, because that's not so much of a moment of activation, right? That's not so much as a moment of moving forward, so much as it is for the feminine really having to ask or question and say to themselves, well, who am I? Like, who am I in that moment? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fifth card in our 5-card spread is, I told you, sometimes it's just that feeling of like the tension release for a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. This isn't even a moment. It's not so much the fact that you can activate on something, but being able to carry it. It's like when we say, like, it just felt like such a burden that was lifted. It feels like there was this weight that was taken off of me. That is that moment energetically where we may recognize that we were holding that. When we hold that blame, when we hold that doubt, when we hold that fear, when we hold that shame, it just like creates this like knot in us So being able to perceive something in such a way that you're able to understand the source or the cause of it, and you're no longer holding yourself energetically accountable for it. It's almost that moment that, again, it's not even so much that this energy is healing something, so much as the ability to stop blaming oneself for something that occurred in the past, or the ability not to be so harsh on oneself. That's almost that moment that creates that sense of relief and easement, like that collective sigh I was saying energetically, because that's that understanding that brings with it peace. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency right now, this is not feeling so much like peace, so much as a desire or aspiration for something to get easier, right? For a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union, the peace that you create for one another is the gift that you have via the counterpart. It's everything around you right now, because we saw that a lot of these energies are shifting into a modality of wanting to build forward and tighten those energetic bonds. So this is a lot of that energy that's doing that work to try to hold firm or hold together. And it feels like everything around you energetically is making that more difficult. So what is this energy doing? They're doing everything they can to facilitate that manifestation toward that path work towards their manifestation goals that will make things energetically easier as you proceed forward. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, this is really lovely. I got to admit, for the energy in separation right now, I told you a lot of closure we've been seeing that's been happening, specifically, I want to say over the last 2 weeks. And a lot of this energy making these new connections and recognizing just the ability to talk about something from the past. This is a lot of energy that as they talk about something and they hear that past tense being utilized, they realize that they've already come through something that they, as of a few days ago, they would have told themselves they were still actively engaged within, right? So we see even now that this is really that moment or modality of feeling like there's some kind of relief here. There's some kind of validation point that is amplifying and helping the energy understand that something that was in the past may not have been like that ending, but this was like the new beginning that they were moving towards, right? And even for a lot of this energy, looking at something from the past and being like, this is the beginning of something new, that is that moment that is not the fact that the weight of the journey that you carried prior to this point is gone, but you're potentially recontextualizing it as you proceed forward, because now you're seeing that pathwork opening up in something new that is around something that you may have energetically felt like you were never going to be able to recover from, or you felt like you were caught within, or you felt like you were trying so hard to push through. And we see even now, it's not the fact that that energy has gone through those modalities of those experiences and saying I'm completely over it. If anything, they're attenuating and they're setting the standards of the new experience based on the lessons that were learned from the past. So we see even now a lot of really beautiful energy entering the collective. Specifically, I have to say, the most beautiful place I see this right now, again, energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, an energy that is in separation, making these new energetic connections. The energy coming into the divine union frequency is doing a little bit of the heavy lifting right now. Sorry, guys. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Wands in its upright and our Death card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification. Oh, this is beautiful right now. I'm not surprised to be seeing we guys, I know it's been like Pentacle City for we've been in Taurus season. We're going to see a lot of pentacles during this time. It's just, it's the Taurus way. So a lot of the space, a lot of the concentration, intangibilities, right? And what are we seeing as we're coming out of this Taurus season? We are seeing a lot of the fruits of the labor. We're seeing a lot of the fruits of the labor, of the work that felt like it was not moving, right? There were moments over the last few weeks, you're like, nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. And I told you, because that was that Aries season coming into the Taurus, that feeling of being like, you can't see something until it comes out of the ground, right? You can't see something. It's going to feel like there's nothing there until, boop, you know what I mean? So what are these energies right now in separation even talking about? This could be the energy that's almost like reminding, especially the masculine, being like, like that's that moment of the masculine looking back and having that sense of energetic appreciation towards anything that feels like it was a hurdle from the past. Because this is that moment of seeing the result of what felt like it was a hurdle, right? That's when the hurdle becomes a gift. That's a moment that you see the point that you're like, that wall I experienced, that blockage, that place I had to move away from. I'm now starting to see and understand like my own ability to navigate through something instead of coming into that space of like letting all hope be lost. Now there's that moment that the masculine is coming forward and able to either, again, this is happening in and out. So this is the masculine energy that's receiving that energetic lesson from within and understanding in some of the new experiences that they're building forth with feminine. But that's not coincidental. And for the masculine that's healing, you recognize that it's not coincidental because this is masculine being like, yeah, I'm getting something out, what I'm putting in, but I also know what to put in now because of the experiences that I did not do so, right? So this is that masculine energy, like recognizing that that you are the energetic gift and your own ability of moving forward in such a way and adapting and understanding oneself. Like that's that moment that feels like that sense of building forth in a way that is more authentic. Well, if masculine, if you feel like you're building forth in a way that is more authentic right now with feminine, I bet you're reminding yourself going, well, that's not just happening coincidentally. That's because I'm leading forth with authenticity. For feminine energy, if in separation, I have to say, this could be some feminine energy in separation that has a few different opportunities coming towards them. I'm just going to be honest. Like, there could be a moment right now for feminine that we see even now, the feminine in separation, because there's a lot of masculine energy here around this feminine energy. This could be the feminine energy. If this was feminine energy that did so much of that work to move away from something that felt like it was an energetic blockage. And a lot of this feminine energy potentially not even leaving something and from a point of closure, but saying, I don't want to relinquish my manifestation goals for the sense of maintaining a connection. That the manifestation goal and the desire and aspire to stay on the path is the aspiration of the feminine. This is a feminine that feels like they're healing the masculine energy in the process, because this is the feminine energy that feels like they're not just doing that work for themselves, but they're hoping to build a positive connection with masculine, wherein the masculine, does not just look towards feminine energy to be completely adaptable, because that's like you're working with like clay. You're working with something that's too energetically malleable. This is the feminine energy that says, like, my own ability to be resilient doesn't mean that the feminine energy is becoming rigid and bitter. Right? This is the work. This is the feminine energy doing that silk to steel approach and understanding and identifying and saying themselves to a certain extent and saying, I want to be strong enough in my own sense of self that I know where my own standards and boundaries are, but also adaptable in curiosity in how to navigate within that space with masculine. This is the feminine that also feels like they're taking that energetic lesson forward towards masculine. And that in itself, if the feminine energy is feeling and receiving something that feels energetically different, that's the feminine also giving themselves like a little like pat on the head and saying that that's a feminine energy that says, my ability to articulate on what I want is not me being demanding, but that's building a sense of an empowered connection with new masculine energy that I'm now creating forward with. So even now, if this is spaces or places of reconciliation or even new energetic connections, there's new results that are coming through, but these energies aren't just coincidentally hopping there and experiencing them. They're doing that work of the self and being mindful of what they're experiencing as they go. And that's a little bit of like, that's that slowness, right? Because that's a bit of that, like, this is energy that's working very hard on equal give and take. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union. You've already found a counterpart that you're doing this work with. This has more to do with trying to like integrate your experience, right? This is more to do with a lot of this energy trying to manifest a more integrated experience with the counterpart. And it feels a little rough right now because this could feel like a lot of the externalization or frustration at the factors that may feel like they're creating more of issues around you as opposed to within, because these are energies right now. I told you the energy right now coming into divine union, they recognize the difference between something that they're experiencing and something that they're internalizing. And both of these energies are doing that work and facilitating that path work together. It is pulling out different facets in those energies to do that work, right? This is masculine continuing to build forth with feminine. If this is a masculine that like worked very hard on integrating a lot of those energetic lessons of the feminine, this is the masculine that is almost acting as a clear mirror towards the feminine, helping the feminine energy, potentially see the difference between what may be identified as an insecurity in the feminine that needs to be addressed versus something that the feminine may have taken on that wasn't theirs. I told you a lot of this energy over the last week coming into divine union is like they're carrying something and being like, what the heck is that? Like, what is that? But that being like, that's that moment of being like, I don't know if that's yours. I think somebody gave that to you and told you it was yours, but that's not yours, right? So we see even now, especially if this is in the realm of like insecurities or doubts or fears of the self, these are the energies that are almost just like, again, they're not opening up those wounds, but they're already facilitating and building forth in a way that feels like they're healing. Because masculine, if this is feminine expressing them to the masculine, their insecurities, what is masculine saying to the feminine? I don't see anything about you that I don't find beautiful or energetically perfect. I feel like maybe someone told you there was. See how they're starting to do the work that the energy deep in the heart of the divine union is doing? Whilst again, if this is masculine that has those wounds and being authentic to the feminine, this is the feminine energy that's almost saying the masculine, I don't feel like anything that you've said to me has been too heavy energetically to handle. I feel like every time you bring your truth to me, I become more and more trusting of you. So these energies are already facilitating healing around spaces or places that they may have felt like they were never going to heal, simply by the moment of acceptance or curiosity that they are receiving from one another in a moment of expressing and showing each other their vulnerabilities and insecurities. And instead of having that wound opened or deepened, that moment of immediate deepening of the energetic connection with the counterpart. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is that unpacking within the self of letting go of an energetic burden that you may have been carrying for a long time. And it can feel a little akin to that moment that feels like a breakthrough. And sometimes you just kind of shake your head and go, I can't believe I didn't see it that way before. But a reason that a lot of this energy is doing so is because you recognize that for a lot of the energy, carrying around an insecurity and a weakness point, sometimes that's what feels stable, especially if you've had it for a long time, because a lot of this energy has come to know themselves enough that they don't need to identify by their insecurity, by their weakness. It's not something that feels like it's holding them to the ground so much as it feels like it's an anchor. And that's why we see even now the ability to re-articulate on something, the ability to perceive something in a different way. These aren't energies that are effectively saying to a certain extent that they would ever desire something difficult to happen to them. But now they're understanding, like they're finally receiving the lesson around something in such a way that it feels like it's changing their own shape on their own experiences in such a way that they're building even deeper sense of themselves. Because now it's that moment that you can almost feel like there's a whole part of you that gets unlocked or opened in the moment that you're able to hold something or see something or speak about something in such a way that it doesn't feel like it's a wound. It almost feels like something that you can show others and build forth in a positive way. Taking something that you used to hide and building forth in a way that it feels like it is creating a sense of balance and security. Continuing to build forward on these cards between our Death card in its reversal and our Queen of Swords in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. Look at these counterparts today. We got here our Queen of Swords and our King of Swords back to back, right against each other. Though the Queen's in its reversal. Masculine is in its upright. I'm not surprised to see these cards in this position. It's actually, don't get upset the fact that you see the Queen of Swords in its reversal, because these are energies. What happens when you're working via counterpart? When one is the idea of a counterpart is not the idea of a parallel. These are not energies that match each other. Right? These are not energies that need to match one another as it relates to how they come forward. These are counterpart energies. And when energies are working as counterparts, then when one thing is strong, the other is weak. When one thing pushes forward, the other one pulls back. These are energies that are working with a lot of that discernment and recognizing what they need to bring forth. Feminine energy building forward right now in that sense, and this is what the feminine is working on. The feminine energy is working on the recognition point that when they're in what they feel like their point of like energetic strength is, the feminine energy finding that ability to navigate silk to steel to a certain extent, being very resilient but malleable. How does one do that in a way that feels like it is not too adaptable? By knowing and understanding oneself, knowing where those strong points are, knowing where those inflexibility points are, knowing the bones of your own self. You can be very adaptable, but also be very firm, right? And that's that path work that the feminine is working through right now, continually as they work with masculine. Masculine, this is the opposite. The feminine, this is building and learning about how to create that sense of energetic resistance within the self, that place of firmness. Masculine, because this was feminine, pushing a lot of those etheric wounds outside of the body, something that they were holding themselves, trying to become something that they were not. This is the feminine saying, the way I do not become something I am not is knowing who I am. That's why this is a journey of exploration right now. For masculine, if this is a wound that you are holding yourself energetically accountable from, but you didn't let yourself feel it. This is masculine taking the wound from childhood in. This is the masculine saying, it wasn't my fault. But the minute I say it wasn't my fault, I have to admit that I can be vulnerable. So this is the masculine bringing that softness into something, which again creates a state or space of the masculine recognizing and saying, the more I'm able to feel, the softer I am, the stronger I become. Because if I can be both, like something that is strong is brittle. Something that is rigid is brittle, but it's something that is strong, that is able to feel, but still take the energetic feeling and become even stronger from it. That is the masculine that's working on that same pathwork of the feminine. So what are they doing right now? They're integrating the lesson of the other within the self as it relates to healing pathwork of the past. And it's hard, right? Because it has to require you to push out of your comfort zone. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, this is that feeling. This isn't necessarily happening so much on that metaphysical level, so much as it is happening more in the practical space. Because feminine and masculine energy right now are working to overcome challenges and hurdles that feel like they are intervening or intercepting on their own ability to build forward in a positive connection. The issue is not within the connection. It has more to do with the externalized situations or factors outside of it. Both of these energies are adopting different ways of navigating that. So even now, that could be a little bit more of an external challenge right now for energy coming into the divine union frequency. Why? Because this could, I'm just going to say it, this could have a lot of, I want to say, on the good end, productive, on the far end, challenging conversations, because this could articulate or attenuate the idea of two energies that want to go in the same direction. They want to go to Albuquerque, but they might have very different opinions on the best way of doing that. But even here, we see that these energies are being adaptable in recognizing that, because that's the gift of experiencing the counterpart in such a way that you see someone who has a different perspective and you don't feel like it's necessarily a limitation to your own desire to move forward in such a way. You feel potentially the gift like they're showing you a blind spot, or they're showing you something in a way that you couldn't necessarily see before. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, a lot of the energy in separation is working through a lot. This is a lot of closure I'm seeing right now that is occurring right now for energy in separation. And that closure is either coming via the pathway of reconciliation. But again, reconciliation not being like energies that are coming back together and being like, I missed you. Okay, good. Let's go continue to repeat the awful cycle we were in. No, these are the energies that are doing that work in understanding and being able to bring forth something that they weren't able to bring forth in the past, right? That type of path work, I'm going to say there could be a long point of distance between these, because these are long journeys of someone coming able to bring forth something that they see that they might not have been able to see before. While as a lot of this, a majority of this energy that I'm seeing right now has to do with new energetic connections. And a lot of these new energetic connections are almost being expressed, and they're being amplified in the sense of looking back on situations and scenarios. And these may be energies that are almost amplifying the fact that something ended recently, because they're almost saying, I did everything I could do until I couldn't do anymore, right? And so that's the feminine and masculine potentially finding each other and healing and saying, that's the feminine saying, I had to accept, look at this, I had to accept that there was something that I could not change, or that the ability to change something would have made me have to lose a complete sense of who I was in the process. Or this is masculine saying the ability to maintain something would have required me to have to move into a modality where I wouldn't be honest. I would have had to move into a space or place of dishonesty, and I could not depart from my own sense of authenticity to be able to navigate forward in such a way. And so even now, these energies potentially coming into new energetic connections and almost sharing the grief and identifying that such occurred. That's that moment that immediately some of these energies are feeling like they're building a new strong connection, because you're seeing someone and saying, we didn't go through the same thing, but we kind of did. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between the Knight of Wands with the Two of Wands in its transverse, and our Queen of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with, that's the beauty of this card. I love the fact that this card keeps coming up in its reversal. I love the fact that this card keeps coming up in its reversal, because we've been getting it so many times, but it's been its reversal. We've got here our Five of Swords in its reversal. So even the energy right now, I need to stress, the energy right now coming into new connections. I have to say, some of this energy feels like they're not too far out of past experiences, right? But what has been amplifying to a lot of the energy doing this work in relationality to how much you are building forward from this point? It's the fact that you're building forward and you're articulating on the past experiences with such a level and degree of openness, honesty, understanding, and clarity, having identified the fact that you've already started to do the process of recognizing your own limitations in those experiences, that it's almost completely, abundantly clear, even if these are new energetic partnerships that are forming, or new potential connections, a resolve to not going back to repeat an energetic cycle. Like that is the articulation, that is the prioritization of a lot of the energy in separation. That affirmation of saying there was something that I could not change, and I have affirmed that I'm not going to try to go back to keep changing something that I could not change. The masculine saying there was something that I could not continue forward on because it would have required me to move away from my manifestation goal, or it would have required me to have to create a false manifestation for the feminine, and I would not do that. So both of these energetic these energies in separation right now, almost reaffirming, talking openly about the past with such a clarity of understanding that it becomes almost, it becomes self-evident through the very expression and affirmation of the idea or the ability of pulling back on the pathwork of the past to utilize as fundamentally as tools that one is addressing to reaffirm the fact that you do not want to repeat those lessons, as opposed to someone holding on to something with a sense of like painful nostalgia. Like someone being like, this is a sword that I keep holding by the hilt. Let's look at it, like how much it hurts. No, these are energies who are like, this is the wrench that I took with me. I am taking with me from that experience. I had to create this wrench. It is a very positive wrench. I don't mind talking about the wrench because that's something that is helpful, right? So even now, What are the things that the energies recognizing and seeing one another in this capacity? There is a point that some of these energies may be feeling a little bit of concern or conscientiousness and relationality to some of those past experiences. What are these energies doing? They're utilizing the vector of time and consistency to attenuate and articulate and say, I know that you may feel anxiety around energy that you've seen or have experienced moments of someone being halfway healed, having one foot out of the door, being uncertain if they're really ready to leave an energetic commitment or not. These are the energies that are almost amplifying to one another and saying, I recognize that's the case. And I also recognize that the commitment that I can show you is via consistency. Right? Consistency going forward to show you that I am on a path forward. I'm not in a holding pattern. I'm not energetically meeting you in a place that I'm waiting for something from the past to come back. These are the energies that are almost reaffirming their own energetic commitment and saying, I am committed towards going forward. And if there are energies that are in the process of restoring something, these are energies that are saying there's no going back. Like these are energies that would have had to change to such a degree that it's not even the fact that someone is giving someone an assurance that something has changed. They're coming back to show someone, like they've come back to show someone it already has. Continuing to get clarification on these cards, so the energy right now that's coming into divine union, this is more navigating those hurdles. These are more navigating these hurdles. And what we're also seeing to a certain extent is for a lot of this energy coming into divine union, this is the stress point, because the energy coming into divine union right now is not only navigating the present experiences that feel like they're interfering or causing friction in an energetic connection, or they're feeling like they're standing in the way, but we also see the amplification of the energy trying to navigate those wounds that I mentioned, taking on the other's wounds that create that moment that someone else's past pathwork feels like it's becoming part of your own. So that's why I keep identifying that a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union, this is the most discordant area right now energetically, because it's like you probably feel like there's a lot happening all at once. You're like feeling, and it's not that anything different is happening, but the intensity of your energetic connection and the prioritization of that connection is creating a sense that everything else around you feels even more dysregulating or disharmonizing than it typically would, because of the strength of the energetic connection that is forming in the around you. So we see even now, like, that ability to navigate that is important, because it can sometimes bring out triggers, right? It can be triggering when you start to feel that enormity of care and love for another that almost is now building into that place of not just feeling the care for another, but feeling like the anxiety and concern of the counterpart. So we see even now, like, this is that moment that some of the energy isn't necessarily even actively communicating about the full depth of what they're feeling, because they don't want to energetically burden the counterpart or reopen a wound that they're navigating, that they recognize and identify is something that can only be navigated and integrated into their own experience via time. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is that energy of healing something that you can't go back and change, right? I told you, if this is some work you've been doing like on the quantum level, and you've come into this like breakthrough of perception on something, it's not like your perceptual shift makes something go away, but it certainly makes things easier going forward, because a lot of the energy, just being able to have that kind of breakthrough, gives you the clarity to make sure that those traumas, those hurts, those fears, those insecurities will not be mitigated or repeated, as it were. That's the affirmation, and that's the success metric for a lot of that energy and a lot of that healing work, right? Sometimes observation in healing is key, because that's that moment that feels like a breakthrough and saying, well, I had to go through something, and I'm going to set my pathwork and making sure that no one else has to navigate that in the same way. Continuing forward on this journey right now between our Knight of Wands in combination with our Seven of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Wands. What did I say? With our Four of Wands in its reversal. A lot of this quantum healing that we're seeing right now, a lot of this deeper path work for energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. The healing comes through in the recognition and the identification, in understanding why something negative or something that harmed you or something that created a wound in you occurred. Sometimes the gift of those modalities is simply seeing something in such a way that you can reaffirm your own commitment that they will never happen again. Healing comes through in many forms. This is a lot of the Chiron idea, this aspect or aspiration that sometimes the wounds that we carry within ourselves, some wounds can never be fully healed. Some wounds, like even in the best case scenario of doing what we can to navigate and mitigate them, we recognize that we always carry them within. So what do we do in that modality? We work in that purpose of energetically saying that our own ability to carry forth in such a way that we're able to carry something and understand something is also a way to facilitate that sense of the gift of the healing being in knowing that you are moving in such a way that you're preventing that energetic wound from occurring again. That's a lot of that beautiful path work that we see, that a lot of the energy right now in the divine union frequency is facilitating for themselves, that feels like a cathartic point. And that's that moment that is releasing the burden of blame or doubt on oneself, especially if these were things that occurred because someone else was hurt and wounded, right? Because that's a lot of the identification that we see is happening right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency that may have been holding wounds that they were blaming themselves with, that was more of an articulation of someone else's wound being given to you. So that ability of identifying that is almost that sense of saying, like, the buck stops here, right? Like, that's that moment of saying, like, that's how I'm healing, by saying, like that's, like, the buck stops there. That's that moment of saying, no more of that, please. So that moment, it feels like that lightning, because it almost feels like that addition of an easement, but also an energetic responsibility in terms of one's own priorities going forward. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, a little bit less metaphysical here, because the problem with this is happening not from something that happened like way long ago. This could happen like a few years ago. This could happen a few months ago. This could be like, these are new energetic connections that are moving deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. So this is that moment that feels like that sense of frustration, because you are carrying the wounds of the other. You're integrating those wounds in your own person right now. And some of those wounds, you look at someone and you say they shouldn't be there in the first place. Who did that to you? Where'd that come from? I don't like that. Right? That's the energy that feels that sense of frustration as you build into compassion, because the more you get to know one another and the more you see those insecurities, and sometimes those insecurities are placed there because they're just a part of someone's person, but far too often it's not just the fact that these energies are getting to know each other to such an extent that they understand the insecurity. They're also starting to understand the energetic companion energy that may have put those energies there in the first place. And that can feel a little energetically difficult, because these energies right now, I told you, are trying to move forward in that way of going like forward this way, healing that way, while also almost feeling the vibration of the wound had it happened to their own person, right? It's almost like the echo. It's like the experiencing, taking the wound on into yourself and then feeling the echo of harm that other energetic connection caused, that creates that sense of like energetic volatility to a certain extent, because it's attenuating something that is not on your own healing journey, but has become a part of your own etheric body. So we see even now that can be very difficult. And that's why I'm going to say again, it's really important not to let yourself get triggered in that way, because this has a lot to do also with, again, that ability in navigating how one wishes to address and handle something, that deviation point between the masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. These energies appreciate one another for how they carry something. And they don't look towards the other as a point of fault in how that is carried. They almost look towards each other with a sense of curiosity and an insightfulness in relationality to identifying and seeing the difference between a deviation point versus a blind spot, right? And so in a way, these energies appreciate one another because the gift that they feel via becoming into counterpart is one wherein they not only feel things that they haven't felt before, but they see things in a way that they haven't seen them before. And that in itself is a bit of that easement of burden. Masculine and feminine energy in separation, a lot of the energy in separation right now, this is some of that closure to past experiences and circumstances, because there's a moment right now, if you're articulating on something, if you're talking about why something energetically did not work, but you've also done enough work on yourself that you're able to recognize like what's within the self to change that you're taking forward versus something that you experienced. These are energies that are building bridges with those points. These are energies that are identifying and seeing the fact that your own perception isn't one. These aren't energies that are saying, I don't know what happened. All these bad things happened. And here I am, like in separation, right? These aren't energies that are saying, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. These are energies that are saying, I've done the work. I've done the work to parse out what was mine to take to learn. What was something I experienced that I couldn't change. And their energy's own ability to navigate that, they're helping and they're reinforcing that in a moment of encountering one another. Because that's that moment of validation that doesn't, again, that amplifies that sense of someone who understands, like, why you made the choices that you made or why you see things the way that you see them. That is starting to amplify that feeling of being in alignment, even if in separation. Continuing forward on these cards right now, between our Ace of Pentacles in combination with our King of Swords in its upright. May I have one card to clarify, please? Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Cups in its reversal. And this is exactly what we see right now for so much of this energy in separation right now. This is not energy that is looking to repeat a cycle. This is energy that is in separation, that is focusing really, really, really hard in identifying and looking towards their past to try to see and understand their own, I want to say their own, how do I put this? Their own part in anything that feels like it is feeling repetitive, right? Because that's that moment that we have when we're on the healing journey, that if we say to ourselves, this keeps happening, like that's that moment that someone looks at themselves and says, this keeps happening. If something keeps happening, I need to try to understand better what that repetitive vector is. And so if that's for some of the feminine, if that's the feminine saying, if there's something within me that I haven't worked on navigating, if there's something I haven't fixed, if I'm doing everything right, then maybe that's the amplification of the feminine saying, if I'm doing everything right in partnership and something feels like it's never in alignment, maybe that does mean that has something to do with the energy that I'm choosing to move forward with, right? So we see even now that for a lot of the feminine energy going through that's the feminine energy saying like, I'm choosing the energy that wants the same things I want. I'm choosing the energy that is committed to the same path work. Because if this is feminine that's like, agonize on themselves and saying, I can't see anything else I'm doing in partnership that I could be doing differently, then that's a feminine also saying, well, if I'm moving with alignment with energy of masculine, it doesn't seem like they want the same things I want. There's something I can change there, right? So that's why we see even now there's a lot of trepidation in feminine trying to make sure that the masculine that they're moving towards right now, if in separation, is coming from a place of authenticity and consistency. Authenticity and consistency. While for masculine energy, if in separation, if these are new energetic moments that you're trying to build forth with feminine, if you are coming into separation because you realize that what you wanted and what feminine wanted were very different things, but you also recognize that potentially you weren't able to be vulnerable enough, soon enough, to be able to articulate what those needs and desires are. This is also masculine energy saying, I recognize how I can fix that unhealed energetic cycle within myself. If I want feminine that is authentic, then I must be the mirror to the authenticity I desire and aspire to see in the feminine. If I want feminine to be consistent, then I must be the consistency that builds the sense in feminine that they can also give me that sense of consistency. So this is masculine that's on that healing journey of the self, becoming and embodying those aspirations, not for the energy of the counterpart, but recognizing to a certain extent that that same path of prioritization and authenticity, understanding what you want and what you're bringing forth and seeking from another, that is that moment that you're able to navigate forward in such a way that feels, again, vulnerable, but also that sense of energetic strength, because that's that moment that you find the confidence to be able to tell someone what you truly feel, and then have the trust in being able to show them that what you said was true. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union, this is the energy that feels like you've already built that sense of trust within one another. Even the energy right now, coming into divine union, you're already doing that work. You're already feeling that energetic commitment. It's funny though, because you know and recognize it's not even being felt in the tangible space. That is almost that sense of the prioritization that you're creating via your own commitment to one another. And this is the energetic shift that occurs when we prioritize someone, when we prioritize a connection. That is that moment that almost feels like magic, because we take where there is something and nothing, and that energetic connection creates something from where there was nothing. Like, that is the beauty of the commitment. It is that sense of the choice, the amplification, and the recognition of that security in the counterpart, and the choice to always lead forward in that way that is almost reaffirming the commitment to each other, that helps bring that sense of stability even around any of these hurdles or obstacles that some of the energy may be feeling right now as they try to move deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in the heart of the divine union frequency, this change of perception that you are experiencing has to do with the level and degree of security that you feel on the part of the counterpart energy. These are energies right now that are taking those new approaches. They're looking back at the past with a sense of understanding, and they're reaffirming their own commitment to carving forward in that way, even in the places and spaces where they may feel like they don't have a template. Because that's that moment of looking at something and seeing and saying, well, if everything I've experienced feels like it's not right, maybe it's my responsibility to shape something that is. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Swords in combination with our Five of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification is Strength card in its reversal. Not surprised to see this card here. What is happening right now for a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency that's working on healing some very long held wounds? As we said, it is a little bit different for both the masculine and the feminine energy right now. Masculine energy, if these were spaces and places wherein, again, how does a lot of the masculine energy wound form? A moment where you are looking or seeking energetic compassion from the feminine, and instead experience what felt more akin to rejection. Masculine working on that process of healing and saying, if I experienced that pain on the part of the feminine, that wasn't a rejection of my person, that wasn't the articulation of doing something wrong, that was an expression of the feminine having been unhealed. That is the masculine almost allowing themselves to feel the vulnerability point and recognizing what occurred within them. But this is not, again, a masculine moving too much into that modality that things happen to the masculine. This is the masculine taking that same ability of feeling the full breadth of the feelings to navigate and understand what is within the self to change versus what is outside of the self that can't be controlled. And it's only through the act of being able to feel. It's only through the act of being able to feel can one discern the difference. So that is why we see even now that masculine energy's own ability to become in touch with their own emotional territory, recognizing that it is not a point of weakness to feel something. It is a point of strength to be able to feel something and still be strong. That is what is helping the masculine readdress something from the past with different optics, because this is masculine that is learning a new way of perceiving strength that doesn't just require one to be completely stoic. It doesn't require one to be unfeeling. It doesn't require one to become a rock. It requires an ability to feel everything that one is feeling and still be strong in the process. So that is the energy of the masculine that's working on the ability to become more vulnerable and understanding that silk to steel approach, that vulnerability is not a weakness, it is a strength. While for feminine energy, the same applies right now. This is feminine doing a lot of this deep healing. And this is feminine having those modalities of the past, wherein feminine may be recognizing that past modalities of masculine may have had that sense of strength wrong as well. And that required the feminine to become too adaptable, too malleable. Because what happens when the masculine becomes too rigid, then feminine has no choice but to become as accommodating and as fluid as possible, because that's the mat trying to maintain something that feels like a connection with a masculine that's so rigid, almost requires a flexibility of feminine that feels almost untenable. So we see that this is the feminine that's trying to build that sense of resilience within the self to, again, help facilitate a healthy connection with masculine that helps a masculine recognize that feeling one's emotions is part and parcel for building a healthy energetic connection. And that's the feminine that says that there is that flexibility around masculine, but not wherein it makes the feminine deviate from their own sense of self. Both of these energies working on building better, healthy connections going forward and reaffirming their commitment not to allow the wounds of the past to be amplified in their expression in the present. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. You may be doing a lot of this work. It may feel less idealistic and more just having to navigate the past. And a lot of this energy right now is looking towards the past. But what we see is this is the past, the energy that is not looking towards the past in a way to like find an energetic weapon. This is the energy that's looking towards their own past for the tools necessary. Right? Because these are energies that are trying to, like the gift of the partnership, the gift of what they're creating with one another, it feels very vulnerable. And it creates those spaces and places that feel somewhat energetically difficult for both masculine and feminine. Because this is the masculine that almost feels the overwhelm of how much they care about the feminine, which sometimes creates that reactivity space in the masculine. But what's the masculine doing? The same thing I told you the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency is doing, just allowing themselves to feel that and to still maintain that sense of energetic strength, not allowing themselves to be triggered. A masculine may even be looking about how sometimes in the past their own fears and insecurities push them away from the places and spaces they feel like they should have protected. While for feminine, this is the feminine energy working through that same work in terms of, again, having that sense of vulnerability coming into place. But this is the vulnerability of the feminine building into a point of resiliency, right? Reaffirming that sense or that trust in masculine that, again, doesn't feel like that all, like the feminine is able to become resilient when the feminine is able to trust masculine. So we see even now that that's the feminine energy in coming into divine union that already feels like they're healing something from the past with that feeling of trust that they're building forth in a masculine that's able to show that integrity and consistency of purpose that helps the feminine build that sense of wanting to protect the masculine in the same way. Continuing forward for the energy and separation right now, this is a lot of that work in relationality to the closure that we see that a lot of the energy is having as it relates to the new connections that are happening right now. Masculine, this is a lot of masculine moving towards feminine with a lot of determination. But what's beautiful about this is masculine that is being very authentic in terms of what they're bringing forth the feminine. And this isn't masculine that's trying to like force forward towards feminine from a space or place of their own desire. This is the masculine almost recognizes the feminine's own trepidation and is almost building forth in a way that they're trying to build that trust with the feminine and saying, not only am I coming forward to you in this way, but I'm also going to show you with my authenticity and consistency that this is something that you can energetically always expect from me. And that's a masculine saying, there's no way I can tell you that, nor am I trying to. I'm going to show you my authenticity because I know my actions speak louder than words. While for feminine to see a masculine leading forward in that way, that's the feminine energy that's already, again, feeling some trepidation, but already recognizing or feeling the sense of a masculine that doesn't feel like they need to put the words towards it because they're going to allow, like they already built that sense of like when the masculine energy is moving towards the feminine with a sense of energetic conviction, the masculine doesn't need to tell the feminine all the trouble that they're going to because the feminine can just see it. Like the feminine's almost recognizing that in some way, shape, or form right now in the act of a masculine that's potentially like moving towards them with such like a degree of like consistency that it feels almost like again, when you see it, when you feel it, like it's not something that needs to be like, it doesn't need to be explained to you because it's self-evident. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 5 of Swords in its reversal and our 4 of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our 7 of Swords in its upright. A lot of past present stuff happening right now. So even now for a lot of the energy in divine, like what's happening for a lot of energy in separation right now. There's something even now that we see for a lot of the energy and separations occurring that's making you revisit the past. But that revisitation of the past is almost one that feels like you're getting some point of clarity in how far you've energetically come from something, specifically because you're seeing something in a way that feels like it's different. And even now we see that a lot of these new connections are talking a lot about the past. But the difference is, and this is even here, there is a vector, even in the new connections, about some anxiety and fear of someone wanting to go back to the past, right? And that's why we see that time is serving as such an important element right now in these connections. Because these energies are almost amplifying and recognizing and saying to a certain degree, I know I cannot remove that anxiety. I know I cannot remove that fear. There's nothing I can say to you that will make you feel like that is not necessarily there. But these energies are reaffirming through their actions and their energetic conviction and their energetic commitment in the present. That is like, again, that power beyond words and saying, I'm showing you right now, I'm not going back there. I'm articulating about that because I'm not going back there. So these energies are trying to tell one another, because we saw a lot of energy in the last few months encountering each other that was halfway healed, or having like one foot out the door, being halfway towards the manifestation goal. This is the energy that's saying like, let there be no mistake. I'm not going back and forth on something. I'm very much moving in this direction. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, that feeling of frustration may have to do with navigating situations and circumstances from the past. Why? Because we saw that a lot of this energy is dealing right now with integrating what feels like the wounds of the counterpart that you didn't even necessarily feel like you caused. It's like you have to hold the wounds that the counterpart experienced from outside of the divine union frequency. But are these energies taking offense to that? No, they're not. But they are, it is something that does feel somewhat triggering, because it's that moment of having to take on a wound and experience it in such a way that it feels like it's tender. Because it's not something that, it's just something like you have to bear that energetic burden. And that is like the cost, like that is the sense of like when we truly build in a compassionate space with someone, it's like not just the amplification of the love we feel, but their hurt becomes our hurt. And so these energies are doing a lot of work right now, even as they come into divine union, to mitigate those hurts and not let them feel like they're overriding each other's systems in the process of trying to integrate those lessons into their own. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, A lot of this work is a reconsideration on something that you may have been energetically carrying from a point of blame that you've now recontextualized in a way. And the thing that's happening here is when you do that, especially if it's something from far ago, like far away, then a lot of other points that may have happened between then and now need to be recontextualized in the process. So there could be a lot of the energy right now, like almost readdressing things from the past in such a way to almost reopen and explore them to see if they still have the same perception that they did prior to seeing something in the way that they're holding it now. That takes time. There's like open, it's like, oh, there's like all these other boxes I got to open now, right? It's like that's kind of the thing. Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now between our Four of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Strength card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. Knight of Swords in its reversal. So, I gotta say, a lot of the challenge right now for masculine energy is not getting triggered. I'm just gonna say it. Like masculine energy, I see even now, it's not the fact that there aren't a lot of doubts and fears that are rising to the surface right now. But masculine energy, I just see a lot of the work of the right now is channeling that into productive spaces and places. Even in deep in the heart of the divine union, I told you a lot of this work is potentially feeling vulnerable about something that you wouldn't let yourself feel vulnerable about. And so even now, like that can kind of sometimes feel like a little bit of a raw wound, because that's the energy that, like, if you're still feeling that, you may feel like a lot of this is some things are coming up that you didn't let yourself feel in the past. So just be a little patient with yourself, masculine, if you're going through this. And for feminine, I think that it's really a lot of the feminine energy is not trying to, is working more in that sense of healing. This could bring up points of distrust in feminine energy if this is occurring. So we see even now, like both of these energies trying to process some of the feelings that come up from re-perceiving something that needs a little bit of time. While for masculine and feminine coming into divine union, this is a lot of the energy that's going through something on an internal level because you don't want to burden the counterpart energy in a moment that you feel like you're both experiencing something that is like you're trying to, like, this is the energy that's like working through what feels like it is helpful. Like, again, this is energy that does not just subject another to one's own experiences. This is energy that really asks oneself if an emotion coming forward is something that feels like it will be helpful or harmful. So we see even now that this is the energy working through a lot of these processes internally. But it doesn't, I want to say this doesn't feel like it's disingenuous, right? This is about the energy that's like doing that internal processing to identify what feels like it is productive and helpful versus what feels like it might add like an unnecessary energetic burden. That same thing is happening right now for the energy in separation. Because these are the energies I told you that are pushing their own envelopes. They're doing something in a way that they haven't before, but they're immediately feeling results. So even now for masculine, it brings up some feelings of anxiety or fear in being so vulnerable, but masculine is leaning into it. For feminine, this brings up that sense of fearing that their own authenticity will steer or drive the masculine away. But feminine is reaffirming to themselves that, like, the counterpart that they're manifesting would not be driven away by their own authenticity. But it's vulnerable on both sides to experience that fear. Continuing to get clarification between our Strength card in its reversal in combination with our Seven of Swords in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Ace of Cups. And it can be hard because that's overwhelming, especially all across the frequencies right now. A lot of emotionality coming forward. But again, it's okay to have emotionality so long as it feels like it's being utilized in a way that feels like it is productive. So we see even now, like, the ability, I'll put it this way, the ability of the energy in separation to see something that they're doing in a different way that's having a different result. It feels very overwhelming. But we also see that this energy is not letting themselves self-sabotage in these moments. They're just allowing themselves to feel that overwhelm in recognizing or feeling that like what happens in the moment that we experience something and we feel a change. It reminds us of the place that we wish we could have seen that change enacted sooner. So that can be very triggering, because that doesn't mean you want to go back to something, but it almost harkens back to the place that it made you have to learn that lesson in the first place. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is that emotional overwhelm that you're experiencing, because a lot of this energy is like downloading all of the lessons of the other and the counterpart by taking on the insecurities of the other as their own. And that can feel very emotionally overwhelming, but that's why these energies are being very mindful in how they're expressing it to the counterpart, because they don't want to inadvertently open an old wound in the process of experiencing it for the first time. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in the heart of the divine union, you're having that with your own wound. You're allowing yourself to feel something because you're seeing something in a different way that you didn't see it before, and that can be very emotionally overwhelming. Continuing to get clarification, but you're doing it together, right? And even now, the ability to express what you're experiencing with the counterpart and have them affirm your own perception, that in itself feels like an overwhelm point, because I see that some of this energy is now articulating this internal process and they're getting validation for it. And I can almost see them kind of going to that like moment of being like, oh my gosh, thank you for confirming what I was perceiving or what I just recognized. Final card for today's spread between our Knight of Swords in its reversal and our Ace of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. The clarification coming through with our Nine of Swords. The issue, circumstances like this, I got to point out. This isn't energy, I got to say, this isn't energy that's going on a crusade having recognized something from their deep past. Sometimes we pull something up to look at it and then we put it back away. And that's what's happening for a lot of this energetically, especially if these are moments or modalities from the past that were so long ago that you realize that you were viewing something in a different way. You're now reaffirming and readdressing everything that's come between, but you're not necessarily activating on something from the past. In fact, this is the energy that can finally put something to rest. This is the energy that is almost putting that fear, that insecurity to rest. They're putting it to rest because you're no longer holding it as a wound. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. This is the energy that's working to integrate the wounds of the counterpart, and recognizing that a certain element of it is the fact that you didn't have the amount of time that someone else did to work through the energetic lesson. You're experiencing it like you're just experiencing the brunt on it of experiencing it for the first time via the other. So a lot of this energy is almost reminding themselves and saying this will get easier to navigate with time. I didn't have like the 20 years that this person had to heal from this. I'm just experiencing it all now. So even now that is that moment of looking towards a counterpart and saying, how do you energetically do that? Because that's a minute that almost builds even deeper love. And saying, like, I can feel your pain and I want to alleviate you of it. But you almost build that sense of like overwhelm in recognizing like how far or how hard someone's been carrying something, in the sense of how hard it is for you yourself to carry it. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in separation, this is that act of energetic closure. This is that closure that a lot of energy is receiving in the moment that they're able to express what occurred from the past. And for masculine and feminine, there's that moment that feels like it's almost triggering, because there's that moment that like even as you express it, you feel that grief, because this isn't energy. This is energy that did everything that they could prior to moving away from something. And even in that moment, it feels like the reaffirmation. And even here we see there may be a lot of questions that are coming up now, that hardest of hard question that occurs in separation when you're building with someone in these experiences, saying, what would you do if that person came back? And even here we feel like I can even see there may be some energy saying, no, rest assured, that is not that expression point, because this is almost the energy that's able to articulate and explain why. Bottom of the deck on these readings. The Sun card. This is that moment. I have to stress there's something really, a lot of things right now are moving in a positive direction. And I see even that, like, a lot of this, I have to say, a lot of this energy, even in separation, feeling that there's been some kind of breakthrough, even in relationality to new energetic connections, that's that moment of feeling what can be described as bittersweet, right? Because it's almost the energy that wants to feel happy at these times, but sometimes overcoming a huge milestone or hurdle, this is almost energy that's grieving from a lot of those past circumstances or situations. So this is almost a lot of the energy that, I want to say, it's like that feeling of being I feel why is it when I feel happy, I feel guilty? Or why is it when I feel happy, I feel sad? That's because energy, you're processing, you're navigating things on a lot of different levels. So if you're feeling that expansion point that feels kind of like those moments that you're happy, you suddenly feel sad, I think that that's the translation, and the fact that you recognize that you're closing out an energetic lesson from the past that is becoming a lesson instead of the source of joy. It's okay to feel grief as you move forward in that capacity. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is recognizing how precious the counterpart is becoming. And it's almost that moment that starts to amplify that anxiety and fear that rises up as we move towards someone in that capacity, because it's almost more and more of that sense of these energies orienting towards one another to such a high degree that not only do you feel that sense of joy from the counterpart, but what happens when you truly love someone? Their joy becomes your joy, but their burdens become your burdens as well. So it's that amplification that a lot of the energy coming into divine union is trying to navigate. While for masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is that lightning that is coming through after a dark night of the soul, because a lot of this energy went through some serious unpacking to do something like that. And it's not the sense that what you realized made something easier, but it's also your affirmation in taking joy from it, refusing to allow something to perpetuate, being in that moment of saying, I will be the cycle breaker. I will let my healing break the cycle. Sometimes that joy is almost that moment that says, I cannot heal everything within me to heal, but I can heal it by never being the source of that hurt. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. Also, just a couple of updates to let you guys know about. First and foremost, to anyone who were not able to join us for our magician class that we held on Wednesday, that class course is now available to watch on my Substack to paid subscribers, graystrega.substack.com. So if you are a paid subscriber and you couldn't be with us for the live class, you can go ahead and catch that class in its full course there, as well as the course materials. And if you missed the class and would like to partake in the class, you still have ample opportunity to do so. All you need to do is become a paid subscriber at graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription will grant you access to our monthly classes, as well as all of the course materials and recordings for the previous classes. The last 2 classes that we did, you've got plenty of time to catch up if you haven't been following along. So far, we've done the Fool card and the Magician. We will be proceeding forward with our next class will be on the High Priestess, and that class will be on Wednesday, June 16th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. Class, not only will your subscription grant you access to the live class and all of the course materials and recordings of the previous classes, but you will also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students, wherein you can ask any questions in relationality to tarot and your own experience or anything in relationality to the classes. Also, if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only do you get access to all of that, but you also get a discount on the full year's worth of readings, and you also get a free one-on-one mentorship reading with me, wherein we can assess where you are on your own tarot journey, and I'll give you the best insights in terms of what to do to help with the practice and utilizing the classes in the best way that you can, and what to take with you going forward. Again, one of the things that I really tried to do in these classes was make them so that they were useful for both the absolute brand new novice practitioner as well as someone who is very seasoned in the tarot. There's a bit of something for everyone there. Thank you so much to everyone who's already joining us on those classes, and I welcome everybody who might want to join us. And even if you are not a paid subscriber to my Substack, even if you become a free follower, you'll be able to have access to our newsletter, any updates in relationality to courses or classes that we're offering. So please be sure to be following me there. Also, we are offering a new contest right now. I am giving away 2 free 15-minute readings, and all you need to do to enter that contest is take the 2-minute travel survey that you can find in the link in my bio. What we are doing with these, if you've already taken this travel survey, thank you, but there's an opportunity now to be able to get yourself more entries. Whoever wins this particular contest, I'm going to be asking them who referred them to take the survey. So I will give out a reading to not only the person who wins, but whoever referred them. So thank you to everybody who already took that survey, but if you know someone else who might be interested in joining us in some tarot retreats going forward, I would appreciate if you could share it with them and have them join the contest as well. Again, I've got a few ideas on where we might want to go with those, but I would really love your feedback to make sure that I'm creating an experience that everyone can enjoy. Finally, I want to let you guys know about a couple new experiences that I am offering. First and foremost, we are now offering tarot mentorship. So those are classes that are specifically oriented on one-on-one education on the topic of your choice around the tarot and spirituality. Those are customized per student, and I only give them out on a very limited basis. Those can be purchased on an individual level, or if you would like weekly education, you can purchase a discounted monthly class package. All of those can be found in the link in my bio. I'm also offering, for those who are looking for more consistent weekly tarot support, Weekly Tarot Insights, which is an offering of a month's worth of tarot readings for a discounted rate, which will allow you to have weekly check-ins in terms of where you are on your own journey and what you might need to help you through each week. Again, I want to thank you guys so much for these offerings. I'm building them a lot based on your own feedback. So thank you to all of my clients and class participants who have been giving me these thoughts, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to build forward with you in this way. That's it for us today. I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of each other, and we will do this again